the pattern I was observing was that common to my most severe cases, whether it was asthma or attention deficit, the vast majority of the kids that I was caring for had some significant trauma. And whether it was they had a parent who was struggling with mental illness or substance dependence, or they were witnessing domestic violence at home, I was observing that it was affecting their health. And so I really dove into the science about how early adversity affects the developing brains and bodies of kids. And I will tell you, what I learned blew my mind, because, I did my pediatrics residency training at Stanford, and I never learned in medical school or residency about the effect of adverse childhood experiences on brain development, right? That it actually affects the development of children's brains, but not only their brains, their immune system, their hormonal systems, even the way their DNA is read and transcribed. And I really felt like this is something that not only every pediatrician should know about, but every person should know about, right? Like every parent, every educator, like everyone in the world needs to know that early adversity gets under our skin and changes our biology. When we're exposed to high levels of trauma and adversity, and especially during the critical years of childhood, when our brains and bodies are developing, that releases stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And that has biological impacts on our bodies. So a child who has experienced 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, and that includes, being victim to abuse or neglect, or growing up in a household where there's parental substance dependence, incarceration, domestic violence, where there's parental separation or divorce, or parental mental illness. And a child who's experienced 4 or more of those adverse childhood experiences, they're twice as likely to develop asthma. They're up to 32 times as likely to have learning and behavior problems. And when they grow up, they're twice as likely to have, to develop heart disease, stroke, cancer, chronic lung disease. These are not small impacts. And we're just now beginning to understand how exposure to high levels of trauma and adversity are affecting the way our brains and bodies function and increasing our risk for serious health complications. With this COVID-19 pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. The measures that we have to take, to the necessary measures, right? Because this is really serious, but the measures that we have to take in terms of physical distancing, sheltering in place, is great if your home is safe. But there are a lot of people across our state, our country, and our world for whom home is not safe. The people who usually are the nurturing, caring adults in a child's life, who might notice that something is going on and inquire and check in and say, how are you? And actually learn that a child is at home with a parent who's struggling with substance dependence and maybe, did something to harm the child. They're no longer coming into contact with any of those folks, not with the rabbi or the pastor, not with the coach, not with the art instructor. And so what we see is that it's not that we think that child maltreatment is going down. In fact, it's likely going up, but what we see is that it's going undetected. There is a lot of evidence about the things that can actually make a difference and improve health and well-being for folks who have experienced trauma, right? And what all of the research shows is that the single most powerful antidote to the impacts of trauma and adversity is nurturing, caring relationships with others, right? Safe, stable, and nurturing relationships. And so what that means is that right now, even though we have to be physically distant, it's actually more important than ever for us to stay emotionally connected. And that can be, for example, educators or anyone in a child's life, or frankly even in an adult's life, right? To reach out and check in, especially if you're concerned or worried that someone may be vulnerable, right? To reach out and check in, text, call, FaceTime, whatever it is. That that emotional connection actually is truly deeply healing. All you have to do is be there for a person. All you have to do is believe believe them when a victim comes forward, right? That is what you can do. And what's powerful about it is that the science shows us that nurturing relationship, that connection, that someone saying, I believe you and I'm so sorry that this happened to you, right? You don't have to fix it. You don't have to solve it, but you can be there. And if you can, even just to talk to someone every day, or if you have a couch that someone can sleep on, or whatever it is, whatever resource or connection that you can provide, you don't have to worry about not being enough. You just have to be willing to be there and listen, and to be, that shoulder and those open arms.